Warren Pierce stood frozen in the doorway of the Riverside Hotel ballroom, his heart hammering against his ribs as he spotted her across the room after 20 years. The 20-year reunion banner hung over the entrance like a reminder of everything that had changed and everything that had stayed the same. Warren had built an empire in those 2 decades, turned his father's struggling manufacturing company into a billion-dollar operation with facilities across 3 continents. He had negotiated deals with international corporations, stood before shareholders without flinching, and made decisions that affected thousands of employees. But seeing Aria Nelson standing by the punch table in a midnight blue dress that caught the light just right, he felt 17 again, tongue-tied and uncertain. She was laughing at something her friend Rachel was saying, her head tilted back in that way he remembered so well. Her dark hair fell in waves past her shoulders now instead of the straight ponytail she had worn in high school. She looked different and exactly the same all at once, and Warren realized he had stopped breathing. "You going in or planning to block the entrance all night?" His friend Marcus clapped him on the shoulder, nearly making him stumble forward. "I'm going in," Warren said, straightening his jacket. The expensive tailored fabric felt like armor, something to hide behind. He had worn a suit despite the casual dress code on the invitation, needing that professional confidence to get him through the door. Marcus whistled low. 20 years since graduation. Remember when we thought we would rule the world? Some of us did, Warren said with a slight smile, then immediately regretted how it sounded. Marcus had become a successful architect, designing buildings that dotted the city skyline. They had all done well in their own ways. They walked into the ballroom together, and Warren was immediately swept into conversations with former classmates. Everyone wanted to talk to him, to congratulate him on his success, to mention they had seen the Forbes article about emerging manufacturing innovations. He shook hands and made small talk, but his attention kept drifting across the room to where Aria stood. She had been the girl he could never work up the courage to ask out. They had been friends, sort of. They sat near each other in English class junior year, had been lab partners in chemistry. She had always been kind to him, always smiled when she saw him in the hallway. But Warren had been too awkward, too unsure of himself back then. He had watched her date Michael Chen, then Tom Richardson, never saying a word about his own feelings. Warren Pierce. "Man, I heard you were making waves in the business world." Jason Turner appeared at his elbow with a beer in hand, slightly red-faced already. "You own like half the manufacturing plants in the state now, right?" "Not quite half," Warren said, accepting the handshake. "Good to see you, Jason." "What are you doing these days?" "Real estate. Commercial properties mostly. Nothing on your scale, but I'm doing all right." Jason leaned in conspiratorially. "You married? Kids?" "Neither," Warren said, the question making him uncomfortable as it always did. His mother asked the same thing every Sunday dinner. "Been focused on the business." "Smart man. Though plenty of women here tonight who would love to catch up with you if you know what I mean." Jason winked and gestured around the room. Warren nodded politely and excused himself, heading toward the bar. He needed something to do with his hands. As he waited for his whiskey, he finally allowed himself to look directly at Aria again. She was talking to a group of women now, animated and engaged. She had always been social, always able to move through different groups with ease. He had envied that about her in high school. "Warren." The voice came from behind him, and he turned to find himself face to face with Aria herself. Up close, he could see the faint lines around her eyes when she smiled, the small scar on her chin she had gotten in sophomore year when she fell during the pep rally. "I thought that was you. How are you?" His throat went dry. "I'm good. Really good. You look amazing." The words came out before he could stop them, and he felt heat rise in his face, but she just smiled wider, genuinely pleased. "Thank you. You look pretty amazing yourself. I heard you're running a massive company now. That's incredible." "It's been a lot of work," he said, then realized how that sounded. "I mean, I've been lucky. Right place, right time. Don't sell yourself short. I remember how smart you were in school." She touched his arm lightly, a casual gesture that sent electricity through him. "You were always so focused, so driven. I'm not surprised you succeeded." The bartender handed Warren his drink, and he took a grateful sip. "What about you? What have you been up to?" "I'm a physical therapist. I run a clinic downtown, actually. We specialize in sports injuries and post-surgical rehabilitation." Her eyes lit up when she talked about her work, and Warren found himself mesmerized. "It's really rewarding. I love helping people get back to doing what they love." "That's perfect for you," Warren said. "You were always so good with people, so patient. I remember when you helped me with chemistry junior year. I would have failed without you." Aria laughed. "You would not have failed. You just needed someone to explain it differently than Mr. Morrison did. You were brilliant at everything else." They stood there smiling at each other, and Warren felt the years dissolving. The noise of the reunion faded into background static. He wanted to tell her everything, wanted to confess that he had thought about her over the years, wondered what might have happened if he had been braver back then. "Aria, come take a picture with us," Rachel called from across the room, breaking the moment. "I should go," Aria said, looking genuinely reluctant. "But let's talk more later, okay? I want to hear about everything." "Definitely," Warren said, and she squeezed his arm once before walking away. Marcus appeared at his side again. "Was that Aria Nelson?" "Yeah, you finally talked to her after all these years." Marcus grinned. "How did it feel?" "Like no time has passed at all," Warren admitted. He downed the rest of his whiskey. "She's even more incredible than I remembered." "Then don't let another 20 years go by without telling her how you feel." Warren spent the next hour trying to work up the courage to approach her again. He circulated through the room, catching up with people he had not thought about in decades. Everyone had stories, had lives that had unfolded in unexpected ways. He learned that Jessica Huang was a district court judge now, that Timothy Wells ran a successful food truck business, that Sarah Kim had become a best-selling mystery author. The awkward teenagers, they had all been transformed into accomplished adults, and there was something bittersweet about seeing it all laid out like this. But his attention kept returning to Aria. He watched her laugh with old friends, pose for pictures, move through the room with that same easy grace. She caught his eye once and smiled, a small private smile just for him, and his heart did something foolish in his chest. Dinner was served buffet style, and Warren found himself in line behind her as if fate was pushing them together. "The chicken looks dry," Aria observed, peering at the warming trays. "Go with the salmon," Warren suggested. "Safer bet." She glanced back at him with a grin. "Always the practical one. Some things never change." "Some things do, though," he said, surprising himself with his boldness. "I'm not as shy as I used to be." "I don't remember you being that shy." She picked up a plate and started loading it with salad. "I was, around you especially." The words hung in the air between them, weighted with meaning. Aria's hand paused over the bread basket, and she looked at him with an expression he could not quite read. "Really?" she asked softly. Warren nodded, committed now to this path. "Really?" "I wish I had known that back then," she said, and there was something wistful in her voice that made his pulse quicken. They filled their plates in silence, but it was a different kind of silence now, charged with possibility. They ended up sitting at the same table, not quite next to each other, but close enough that their knees bumped under the table. Marcus was on Warren's other side, with Rachel and a few others rounding out the group. The conversation flowed easily, stories from high school mixing with updates on current lives. "Remember when Warren gave that speech at graduation?" Rachel said, pointing her fork at him. "You were valedictorian, right? You talked about how we all had potential to change the world." "Oh God, don't remind me," Warren groaned. "I was so nervous, pretty sure I was shaking the entire time." "You didn't look nervous," Aria said. "You looked confident. I remember thinking you were going to do exactly what you said you would do." "What was that?" Marcus asked. "Build something that mattered," Aria said, her eyes on Warren. "Create something lasting." Warren held her gaze. "I tried. Still trying, I guess." The dinner portion of the evening gave way to dancing. A DJ played hits from their high school years, and the dance floor filled with people reliving their youth. Warren was not much of a dancer, but he forced himself to stay visible, to not retreat to the sidelines like he would have done 20 years ago. He was talking with a group of former football players when he saw her. Aria was dancing with a guy he vaguely recognized, David something. They were not dancing close, just moving to the music, but something about the way David was looking at her made Warren's jaw tighten. David leaned in to say something in her ear and she laughed, and Warren felt a spike of something he recognized as jealousy. Marcus followed his gaze. "You going to do something about that or just stand here brooding?" "I'm not brooding." "You're absolutely brooding. Go cut in. Dance with her." "I don't dance." "Tonight you do." Marcus gave him a push toward the dance floor. "Stop being the scared kid you used to be. You're Warren Pierce, CEO of Pierce Industries. Act like it." Warren took a breath and walked onto the dance floor. The song changed to something slower, a ballad that had been popular their senior year. He tapped David on the shoulder. "Mind if I cut in?" David looked surprised but stepped back with a shrug. "All yours, man." Aria's eyes widened slightly as Warren took her hand, placing his other hand on her waist. She settled her free hand on his shoulder and they began to sway to the music. "This is unexpected," she said. "Good unexpected or bad unexpected?" "Good," she said, and the smile she gave him was radiant. "Definitely good." They moved together and Warren was surprised by how natural it felt. He had never been comfortable with this kind of physical closeness, always too aware of his body and what to do with it. But with Aria, it felt right. "I thought about you over the years," he said, the words coming easier in the dim light of the dance floor with music covering their conversation from prying ears. "Wondered how you were doing." "I thought about you too," she admitted. "I looked you up a few years ago, saw the article about your company going public. I was proud of you, even though we hadn't talked in so long." "Why didn't you reach out?" She hesitated. "I don't know. Time had passed. I figured you had your own life, probably someone special in it." "I didn't want to intrude." "There's no one," Warren said. "There hasn't been anyone serious. I dated here and there, but I always compared them to." He trailed off, suddenly aware of how much he was revealing. "To who?" Aria asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "To you," he said simply. "To the way I felt about you in high school." The song was ending, but neither of them moved apart. People were shifting around them, some leaving the dance floor, others coupling up for the next song. Aria looked up at him, and in her dark eyes, he saw something that looked like wonder. "Warren, I had no idea. If I had known back then that you felt that way, you were dating Michael, then Tom, you never looked at me like anything more than a friend." He said it without bitterness, just stating facts. "Because I thought you didn't see me that way either," she said. "I thought you were just being nice, friendly. You never asked me out, never gave any indication you wanted more." The revelation hit Warren like a physical blow. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I had the biggest crush on you junior and senior year," Aria said, her cheeks flushing. I dated Michael and Tom because I was trying to get over you, because I thought you didn't feel the same way. Warren stared at her, processing this information. All those years ago, they had been circling each other, both too afraid to make the first move. 2 decades of what-ifs suddenly stretched between them. We were idiots, he said finally. Aria laughed, the sound bright and clear. Complete idiots. What about now? Warren asked. His heart was pounding so hard he was sure she could feel it. Are we still too afraid? She stepped closer, closing the already small distance between them. I'm not afraid anymore. Are you? Terrified, he admitted. But I'm not running this time. The next song started, something upbeat and energetic, completely wrong for the moment they were having. Warren led Aria off the dance floor and out onto the hotel terrace. The night air was cool, a relief after the warmth of the ballroom. City lights sprawled below them, and in the distance, they could see the river that gave the hotel its name. They stood at the railing, shoulders touching. Warren could not quite believe this was happening, that the girl he had dreamed about for 20 years was standing next to him, had just confessed she had felt the same way. Tell me about your life, he said. Everything. I want to know it all. So she told him. She talked about going to college for physical therapy, about the internships and residencies that had shaped her career. She told him about opening her clinic 5 years ago, the challenges of running a small business, the satisfaction of watching patients recover and regain their lives. She mentioned a relationship that had ended badly 3 years ago, a guy who had wanted her to sell the clinic and move with him to California. She had chosen her business, her independence, and had not regretted it. What about you? She asked. How did you go from that smart but quiet kid in high school to running a billion-dollar company? Warren told her about taking over his father's struggling manufacturing business right out of college. His father had been sick, and the company was on the verge of bankruptcy. Warren had worked insane hours, learning everything he could, making hard decisions about cutting costs and restructuring operations. He had seen the potential for innovation in their processes, had invested everything in new technology when everyone told him it was too risky. It had paid off. The company had grown exponentially, acquired competitors, expanded into new markets. But it took everything, he said honestly. All my time, all my energy. I didn't date much because I didn't have time. And when I did, I realized I was just going through the motions. Nobody ever measured up to the memory I had of you. Aria turned to face him fully, leaning her hip against the railing. That's a lot of pressure to live up to. What if the real me disappoints you? Impossible, Warren said. You're even better than I remembered. She reached out and took his hand, lacing their fingers together. It was such a simple gesture, but it felt monumental. So what do we do now? We don't live in high school anymore. We can't just pass notes in class or meet by the lockers. We do what adults do, Warren said. I take you on a proper date, dinner, something nice. We talk and get to know who we are now, not just who we were. I'd like that, Aria said. She squeezed his hand. I'd really like that. They stayed on the terrace for a long time, talking about everything and nothing. He learned that she was allergic to shellfish, that she ran every morning before work, that she had a cat named Murphy who was probably destroying her apartment right now. She learned that Warren still lived in their hometown, in a house too big for one person, that he played piano when he was stressed, that he donated anonymously to the local children's hospital. When they finally went back inside, the reunion was winding down. People were gathering their things, exchanging phone numbers, promising to stay in touch. Warren found himself genuinely reluctant for the evening to end. Can I drive you home? He asked Aria as they collected their coats. I have my car here, she said, but you can walk me to it. They walked through the parking lot slowly, neither of them in a hurry. When they reached her Honda, she turned to face him. "Thank you for tonight," she said, "for being brave enough to cut in on the dance floor." "Thank you for not shooting me down," Warren replied. He wanted to kiss her, wanted it so badly his hands were shaking, but he held back. Too fast, too soon. "Can I call you tomorrow? Set up that date." "You better," she said. She pulled out her phone. "Give me your number." They exchanged information, and Warren felt like a teenager again, excited and nervous about the prospect of calling a girl. As Aria unlocked her car, she paused. "Warren, for what it's worth, I'm really glad you came tonight. I almost didn't. I was going to make an excuse and stay home." "I'm glad you didn't," he said. "I'm glad we both showed up." She stretched up on her toes and kissed his cheek, her lips soft and warm against his skin. Then she got in her car and drove away, leaving Warren standing in the parking lot feeling like his entire life had just shifted on its axis. Marcus found him there a few minutes later. "You look shell-shocked." "She liked me," Warren said, still processing. "Back in high school she liked me too. All this time we were both too scared to say anything." "That's rough, man, but you have a second chance now, don't waste it." Warren had no intention of wasting it. He drove home that night with the windows down, letting the cool air rush through the car, feeling more alive than he had in years. When he got home to his sprawling house in the suburbs, he sat at his piano and played until dawn, his fingers finding melodies he had forgotten he knew. He called Aria the next afternoon, after spending the morning pacing his house and rehearsing what he would say. She answered on the second ring. "I was hoping you would call," she said, and he could hear the smile in her voice. "Are you free Friday night?" he asked. "There's a French restaurant downtown Le Bernardin, supposed to be excellent." "That sounds perfect. What time?" They made the arrangements, and Warren spent the rest of the week in a state of distraction that did not go unnoticed at work. His assistant Jennifer commented on it Tuesday when he forgot about a board meeting. "You seem different," she said, bringing him the reports he had requested. "Good different. Did something happen?" "I went to my high school reunion this weekend," Warren said. "Reconnected with an old friend." Jennifer had worked for him for 8 years and knew him well enough to read between the lines. "An old friend, huh? Would this friend happen to be why you're actually leaving the office at a reasonable hour this week?" "Maybe," Warren admitted. "Good," Jennifer said firmly. "You work too hard. You need someone to remind you there's more to life than quarterly reports and expansion plans." Friday arrived, and Warren changed his shirt 3 times before settling on a dark blue button-down that Marcus had once told him brought out his eyes. He arrived at the restaurant 15 minutes early and paced the sidewalk outside until he saw Aria approaching. She wore a green dress that hugged her figure, her hair swept up in a way that showed off her neck. Warren forgot how to breathe for a moment. "Hi," she said, slightly breathless like she had been hurrying. "You look stunning," Warren managed. They went inside, and the host led them to a quiet corner table. The restaurant was elegant without being pretentious, all dark wood and soft lighting. Warren had specifically chosen it because it seemed like a place where they could talk without shouting over noise. The meal was incredible, but Warren barely tasted his food. He was too focused on Aria, on the way her eyes lit up when she talked about a patient who had just completed their recovery program, on the way she leaned forward when she was excited about something. They talked about their lives in more depth, filling in the 20-year gap. "Do you ever think about the paths not taken?" Aria asked over dessert. "What life would have been like if things had gone differently?" "Lately, yes," Warren admitted. "I've been thinking about what would have happened if I had asked you out senior year. We probably would have dated through college, gotten married young," Aria mused. "Maybe it would have worked out, maybe it wouldn't have. We were so young. Do you think we're better off having waited?" Warren asked. Having become who we are before finding each other again, Aria considered this. I think we both needed to grow into ourselves. You needed to build your company, prove what you could do. I needed to establish my career, learn what I wanted. But now... She reached across the table and took his hand. Now I think we're ready. Ready for what? For this, she said simply. For whatever this becomes. Warren paid the check despite Aria's protests that they should split it. As they walked out into the cool night air, he offered her his jacket when she shivered. I parked a few blocks away, she said. Walk with me. They strolled through downtown, passing late-night restaurants and bars filled with Friday night crowds. The city had changed since their high school days, new buildings rising where old ones had been torn down, but the bones of it remained the same. I love this city, Aria said. I thought about leaving a few times, going somewhere bigger, more exciting, but this is home. I know what you mean, Warren said. I have offices in Chicago and New York now, but I always come back here. This is where it all started. When they reached her car, neither of them moved to say goodbye. Warren was acutely aware of how close they were standing, of the way the streetlight caught in her hair. I had a really good time tonight, Aria said. Like really good, the kind of good where I don't want it to end. It doesn't have to end, Warren said. We could go somewhere else. Get coffee, take a drive, anything you want. What I want, Aria said softly, stepping closer, is for you to kiss me. Warren did not need to be told twice. He cupped her face in his hands, giving her time to change her mind, then lowered his lips to hers. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, two people finding their way. Then Aria sighed against his mouth and wrapped her arms around his neck, and the kiss deepened into something that made Warren's head spin. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Warren rested his forehead against hers. I've wanted to do that since I was 17 years old, he confessed. It was worth the wait, Aria said, her fingers playing with the hair at the nape of his neck. But let's not wait another 20 years to do it again. They did not. Warren kissed her again and again until they were both laughing and breathless. They ended up getting coffee at an all-night diner, sitting in a booth and talking until the sky started to lighten with dawn. They talked about their hopes and fears, about dreams they had given up on and ones they still held close. Warren learned that Aria had always wanted to write a book about physical therapy techniques, but never felt like she had time. Aria learned that Warren had thought about stepping back from the company lately, training someone else to take over so he could actually have a life outside of work. Why don't you? She asked. You've built something incredible. You're allowed to enjoy it. I don't know who I am without the work, Warren admitted. It's been my whole identity for so long. Maybe it's time to find out, Aria suggested gently. They started seeing each other regularly after that. Warren made space in his schedule, delegated more at work, left the office at reasonable hours. They went on dates, proper dates where Warren picked her up and took her to dinner or a movie or a concert. They also did casual things, grabbing lunch between her client appointments, meeting for morning runs on weekends, cooking dinner together at his house or her apartment. Warren met Murphy the cat, who immediately tried to claim his lap despite Aria's warnings that Murphy did not like strangers. Warren scratched behind his ears and earned a rumbling purr, making Aria shake her head in amazement. He never warms up to people that fast, she said. He hissed at my ex-boyfriend for 6 months. Maybe Murphy is a good judge of character, Warren suggested, earning a laugh from Aria. 3 weeks after their first date, Warren invited Aria to dinner at his house. He cooked, something he had not done for another person in years. It was nothing fancy, just pasta and salad, but he set the table carefully and lit candles. Aria arrived with wine and that smile that still made his heart stutter. She looked around his house with interest, taking in the clean modern lines, the art on the walls, the grand piano in the corner of the living room. "This place is beautiful," she said. "Very you. Is that good?" "It's very good." She set the wine down and walked over to the piano. "Do you play often?" "When I can't sleep," Warren said, "which used to be a lot, less so lately." "Play something for me." He sat down at the bench and she settled next to him. Warren played something soft, a piece by Chopin that had always been a favorite. Aria leaned against his shoulder, and Warren felt a contentment he had not known he was missing. After dinner, they sat on his back patio with wine, looking out over the landscaped yard. It was a clear night, stars visible despite the city lights. "I have a confession," Aria said. "When I looked you up a few years ago after seeing that article, I almost called you. I had your office number pulled up on my phone and everything." "Why didn't you?" "Fear, mostly. Fear that you wouldn't remember me, or that you would be completely different from the person I remembered. Fear that reaching out would ruin the memory I had of you." She turned to look at him. "I'm really glad you came to the reunion. I'm glad you were brave enough to dance with me." "Best decision I ever made," Warren said. He set down his wine glass and pulled her close. "Well, second best. Taking over the company was probably first, objectively speaking." Aria laughed against his chest. "Always so practical." "Not always," he murmured, and kissed her until practical thoughts flew out of his head entirely. As weeks turned into months, their relationship deepened. Warren found himself restructuring his priorities, realizing that the company he had built did not need him to be there every moment. He hired a chief operating officer, a sharp woman named Patricia who had been running his Chicago office. He trained her, delegated responsibility, and discovered that the business actually ran smoother with him taking a step back. With his newfound time, Warren focused on Aria. He met her friends, charming them with his quiet wit and obvious devotion to their friend. She met his friends too, though there were fewer of them. Marcus took an immediate liking to her. "About time someone got through to this workaholic," Marcus told Aria at a dinner party Warren hosted. "I've been trying to set him up for years." "I don't think it would have worked with anyone else," Aria said, glancing at Warren across the room. "We have history." They took a weekend trip to the coast, renting a small house right on the beach. Warren worked remotely for a few hours each morning, but the rest of the time was theirs. They walked on the beach, ate fresh seafood, made love with the windows open and the sound of waves in the background. Warren watched Aria sleep in the morning light and thought he could happily spend the rest of his life exactly like this. But it was not all perfect. They had their first real fight 3 months into dating. Aria had mentioned wanting Warren to meet her family, her parents who still lived in their hometown, her younger brother who had just had a baby. Warren had made excuses, putting it off. "Why don't you want to meet them?" Aria asked one night, her tone sharper than usual. "It's not that I don't want to," Warren said carefully. "I just think it's still early. We don't need to rush things." "Early? Warren, we've been together for 3 months. We've known each other for more than 20 years. How is that early? You know what I mean." "I really don't," Aria said. She stood up from the couch, pacing his living room. "Meeting my family is a big step, and if you're not ready for that, maybe you need to tell me what you are ready for." Warren felt panic rising in his chest. "Are you saying you want to break up?" "No. I'm saying I need to know you're as committed to this as I am. Because I'm all in, Warren. I'm falling in love with you, and if you're not in the same place, I need to know now." The words hung in the air between them. Warren stood up, crossing the distance to take her hands. "I'm terrified," he admitted. "I'm terrified because I'm already in love with you. I have been since I was 17. And meeting your family makes this real in a way that scares me. Because what if I mess this up?" What if I'm not good enough? What if we have what we have now and then we lose it? Tears glistened in Aria's eyes. You love me. So much it hurts, Warren said. I think about you constantly. I reorganized my entire life around you. I've never felt this way about anyone, and the thought of losing you makes me want to lock us both away from anything that could go wrong. That's not how love works, Aria said gently. We can't protect ourselves from hurt by holding back. We have to jump in and trust that we'll figure it out together. I know, Warren said. I'm sorry. I'm used to controlling things, planning everything out. But it's not something I can control. No, it's not, Aria agreed. She stepped closer, wrapping her arms around his waist. But that's what makes it good. Warren, I love you too, and I want you to meet my family because I want them to know the man I'm in love with. Not because I'm trying to trap you or rush you, but because I'm proud to be with you. Warren held her tight. Okay, let's do it. I'll meet your family. The following Saturday, Warren found himself standing on the porch of a modest house in the suburbs, clutching a bouquet of flowers and a bottle of expensive wine. Aria squeezed his hand. They're going to love you, she promised. Her mother, Deanne, answered the door, a warm woman with Aria's eyes and smile. She immediately pulled Warren into a hug that caught him off guard. We've heard so much about you, Deanne said. Come in, come in. Her father, Frank, was more reserved, shaking Warren's hand firmly and studying him with the protective eye of a father meeting his daughter's boyfriend. But over dinner, he warmed up, especially when Warren asked intelligent questions about his career as an engineer. Aria's brother Daniel was there with his wife Sophie and their new baby Emma. Warren held the infant awkwardly at first, terrified of dropping her, but Emma grabbed his finger and stared up at him with wide eyes, and something melted in Warren's chest. You're a natural, Sophie said with approval. I've never held a baby before, Warren confessed. You're doing great, Aria said, leaning against his shoulder to smile at her niece. Look at you being all domestic. Dinner was chaotic and loud and nothing like the quiet meals Warren usually had. There was talking over each other, stories told and retold with interruptions, laughter that filled every corner of the house. It was exactly the kind of family warmth Warren had never had growing up as an only child of busy parents. After dinner, Frank pulled Warren aside while the others were clearing dishes. My daughter seems happy, Frank said. Happier than I've seen her in a long time. She makes me happy too, Warren said simply. Good, that's what matters. Frank paused. She told me what you do, the company you run. That's impressive. Thank you, sir. But that's not what's going to matter to Aria. She doesn't care about money or status. She cares about who you are as a person, how you treat her. I know, Warren said. That's one of the things I love about her. Frank nodded, satisfied. Then we're going to get along just fine. Driving home that night, Aria was quiet. Warren glanced over at her. Everything okay? If I said something wrong to your dad, no, you were perfect, Aria interrupted. She reached over and took his hand. I was just thinking about how right this feels. You fitting into my life, meeting my family, it all feels so natural. It does, Warren agreed. He brought her hand to his lips. I'm sorry I was scared before. Tonight was good. It was really good, Aria said. Emma seemed to like you. She drooled on my shirt. That means she's comfortable with you, Aria teased. It's a sign of affection. Winter arrived, bringing the holidays with it. Warren invited Aria to his company's annual Christmas party, a formal affair at a downtown hotel. Aria wore a red dress that made Warren forget how to form complete sentences, and she charmed everyone she met. His employees were clearly curious about the woman who had captured their notoriously single boss's attention. You two make a beautiful couple, Jennifer said, cornering Warren at the bar. I approve. I'm glad I have your blessing, Warren said dryly, but he was smiling. Just don't mess it up, Jennifer warned. She's good for you. Warren had no intention of messing it up. He was already planning ahead, thinking about the future in a way he never had before. He caught himself looking at engagement rings online late at night, imagining what Aria would say if he asked her to marry him. It felt too soon. They had only been together for 6 months, but when he thought about his future, she was in every single vision. They spent Christmas together, alternating between their families. Aria's family Christmas was warm and crowded, presents piled high and too much food. Warren's family Christmas was quieter, just him, his parents, and Aria. His mother Susan fell in love with Aria immediately, pulling Warren aside to tell him not to let this one get away. "I won't, Mom," Warren promised. New Year's Eve found them at a party thrown by Marcus and his wife, surrounded by friends counting down to midnight. When the clock struck 12, Warren pulled Aria close and kissed her while fireworks exploded over the city. "Happy New Year," she whispered against his lips. "Happy New Year," he echoed. "I love you. I love you too." January brought challenges. A major deal Warren had been negotiating fell through, costing the company millions. He threw himself into damage control, working long hours to find alternative solutions. Aria noticed him pulling away, getting stressed and short-tempered. "Talk to me," she said one night when he had been staring at his laptop for 3 hours straight despite being at her apartment for dinner. "What's going on?" "Just work stuff," Warren said dismissively. "Nothing you need to worry about, Warren." Aria closed his laptop, forcing him to look at her. "I'm not asking as someone who is worried. I'm asking as someone who wants to be there for you. Let me in." So he told her. About the failed deal, about the pressure from the board to make up the losses, about his fear that he had made a mistake trusting Patricia to handle the operations while he stepped back. Aria listened without interrupting, then took his hand. "You're an amazing businessman," she said. "You built this company from almost nothing. One setback doesn't erase that. It feels like it does. That's the fear talking. But you know what? You have people to help you now. You have Patricia, you have your team, and you have me. You don't have to carry everything alone anymore." Warren pulled her into his lap, burying his face in her neck. "I don't know what I did to deserve you. You were yourself," Aria said simply. "That's all you ever had to be." With Aria's support and Patricia's expertise, Warren navigated the crisis. They found new partners, restructured some deals, and by March, the company was back on track. Warren learned to lean on his team more, to trust that he had built something strong enough to weather storms. Spring arrived, bringing new beginnings. Warren took Aria to the botanical gardens on a Saturday morning, walking through the blooming flowers in comfortable silence. They had been together for 9 months now, and Warren could not imagine his life without her in it. They stopped by a fountain, and Warren turned to face her. "I need to tell you something," he said. Aria looked worried. "That sounds ominous." "It's not, I promise." Warren took both of her hands. "You changed my life. Before you, I was just going through the motions. Work, sleep, repeat. I told myself I was happy, that success was enough. But then I saw you at that reunion and everything shifted. You reminded me that there's more to life than quarterly earnings and expansion plans." "Warren," Aria said softly, her eyes glistening. "I'm not finished," he said. "I love you. I love your kindness and your strength. I love how you make me laugh, how you call me out when I'm being stubborn, how you fit perfectly in my arms. I love that you're as passionate about your work as I am about mine. I love your family, your cat, your terrible taste in reality TV shows." Aria laughed through tears. "They're not that terrible. They're pretty bad," Warren said fondly. He took a deep breath. "I was 17 when I first fell in love with you. I'm 37 now and I'm still falling. I don't want to wait another 20 years to tell you how I feel. I don't want to wait another 20 days. He got down on one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Aria gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. Aria Nelson, will you marry me? Warren opened the box, revealing a diamond ring that caught the sunlight. Yes, Aria breathed. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. Warren slipped the ring on her finger and stood, pulling her into a kiss that felt like coming home. Around them, other visitors in the gardens clapped and cheered, but Warren barely heard them. All he could focus on was Aria, her arms around his neck, her smile brighter than the sun. I can't believe you just proposed, she said when they finally broke apart. I thought we were just looking at flowers. I've been carrying that ring around for 2 weeks, Warren admitted, waiting for the right moment. This was perfect, Aria said, looking at her ring. Oh my God, Warren, this is gorgeous. Nothing compared to you. They called their families from the gardens, sharing the news. Warren's mother cried happy tears. Aria's father told Warren he had made a good choice, which Warren took as high praise. They spent the rest of the day celebrating, just the two of them, talking about the future they would build together. Planning the wedding was a whirlwind. Aria wanted something relatively simple, just family and close friends. Warren would have married her in a courthouse if she had asked, but he went along with whatever made her happy. They set a date for September, 6 months away. Is that too fast? Aria asked one night as they looked at venue options. Not fast enough, Warren said. I'd marry you tomorrow if we could. They chose a small estate outside the city, a place with gardens and a view of the hills. The ceremony would be outdoors, intimate and personal. Aria's best friend Rachel agreed to be maid of honor. Warren asked Marcus to be his best man. The months flew by in a blur of planning and preparation. Warren found himself learning about things he had never cared about before: flowers, seating charts, cake tastings. Aria teased him about his opinions on napkin colors, but she was clearly touched that he cared enough to be involved. In August, Aria moved into Warren's house. She brought Murphy and her furniture and her energy, and the place that had always felt too big for one person suddenly felt exactly right. Warren would come home from work to find her in the kitchen cooking dinner, or curled up on the couch with patient files, and his heart would swell with gratitude that this was his life now. The night before the wedding, Warren could not sleep. He stood in his study, looking out the window at the darkened yard. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, Aria would become his wife. Having second thoughts, Marcus appeared in the doorway, carrying 2 glasses of whiskey. Warren's parents had insisted on the tradition of the groom not seeing the bride before the wedding, so Aria was at her parents' house for the night. Not even close, Warren said, accepting the glass. I'm just processing. A year ago I was alone, married to my work. Now I'm getting married for real, to the woman I've loved since I was a kid. Funny how life works out, Marcus said. You wasted 20 years being apart, but maybe you needed those years to become who you are now. Aria said something similar once, Warren mused. That we needed to grow up before we could grow together. She's a smart woman. The smartest, Warren agreed. He clinked his glass against Marcus's. Thank you for pushing me to talk to her at the reunion. None of this would have happened if you hadn't. You would have figured it out eventually, Marcus said, but I'm glad I could help speed things along. The wedding day dawned clear and perfect. Warren stood at the altar in his tuxedo, his heart racing as he waited for Aria to appear. The chairs were filled with people they loved, but Warren only had eyes for the house where Aria was getting ready. Then the music started, and she appeared. She walked down the aisle on her father's arm, stunning in a simple white dress that flowed around her. But what made Warren's breath catch was her smile, radiant and full of joy, directed right at him. Frank placed Aria's hand in Warren's, and Warren held on tight. They had written their own vows, and when it was his turn to speak, Warren looked into Aria's eyes and said what he had been holding in his heart. Aria, I spent 20 years regretting that I never told you how I felt, 20 years wondering what might have been. And then life gave us a second chance, and I knew I couldn't waste it. You make me want to be better, do better. You've shown me that life is about more than work and success. It's about moments like this, about building something with someone you love. I promise to love you fiercely, to support your dreams, to be your partner in every sense of the word. I promise to never let another day go by without telling you how much you mean to me. Aria was crying, happy tears streaming down her face. She wiped them away and spoke her own vows. Warren, you've been in my heart since we were teenagers. Back then, I was too afraid to tell you, but I'm not afraid anymore. You see me, really see me in a way no one else ever has. You make me laugh, you challenge me, you make me feel cherished. I promise to be your safe place, your biggest cheerleader, your home. I promise to love you through good times and bad, through success and setback. I promise to never let you forget how incredible you are. The officiant pronounced them husband and wife, and when Warren kissed Aria, the world fell away. There was only this moment, this woman, this perfect beginning. The reception was everything Warren had never known he wanted. Good food, better company, and Aria in his arms as they danced their first dance as husband and wife. He looked around at the smiling faces of their family and friends and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. "What are you thinking?" Aria asked, swaying in his arms. "That I'm the luckiest man alive," Warren said. "That I get to spend the rest of my life with you." "We're both lucky," Aria said. She rested her head on his shoulder. "We found our way back to each other." They honeymooned in Italy. 2 weeks of exploring ancient cities and eating incredible food and making love in beautiful hotel rooms. Warren turned off his phone for the entire trip, something the old version of himself never would have done. But the company was fine without him, and he was exactly where he needed to be. When they returned home, they settled into married life with ease. Aria's clinic was thriving, and Warren continued to step back from day-to-day operations at work, focusing instead on strategic planning and innovation. They made time for each other, for date nights and lazy Sunday mornings, for the small moments that made up a life together. A year after the wedding, over dinner at their favorite restaurant, Aria brought up something they had danced around before. "I want to talk about kids," she said. "I know we've mentioned it in passing, but I want to know how you really feel." Warren set down his fork, giving her his full attention. "I feel like it's something I never thought I wanted, but only because I never let myself think about it. But with you, I want everything. I want kids with your smile and your kindness. I want to be a father to build a family with you." Aria's face lit up. "Really? You mean it?" "I've never been more sure of anything," Warren said. He reached across the table to take her hand. "Is that what you want?" "More than anything," Aria admitted. "I see you with Emma, how gentle and patient you are. You're going to be an amazing dad." They started trying, and 6 months later, Aria walked into Warren's home office holding a pregnancy test. "We're having a baby," she said, tears streaming down her face. Warren crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling her into his arms. "We're having a baby," he repeated, the words sinking in. He was going to be a father. He and Aria were going to have a child. The pregnancy was relatively smooth, though Warren became incredibly protective. He read every book he could find, drove Aria crazy with his concerns about her diet and rest. She tolerated it with good humor, knowing it came from a place of love. They found out they were having a boy, and the nursery became Warren's project. He painted it himself, assembled the crib, arranged and rearranged the furniture until it was perfect. Aria would find him in there sometimes, just sitting in the rocking chair and staring at the empty crib, preparing himself for what was coming. Their son was born on a rainy April morning, after 12 hours of labor that left Warren feeling helpless and in awe of Aria's strength. When the doctor placed the baby in his arms, Warren looked down at the tiny face and felt his heart expand in ways he had not known were possible. "Hi, William," he whispered to his son. They had chosen the name together, wanting something strong and classic. "I'm your dad. I'm going to do my best not to mess this up." "You're going to be wonderful," Aria said from the hospital bed, exhausted but glowing, and Warren was. He threw himself into fatherhood the same way he had once thrown himself into work, but with more joy, more presence. He changed diapers and did midnight feedings, learned to function on no sleep, and somehow loved every minute of it. Watching Aria as a mother was a revelation. She was patient and loving, instinctively knowing what William needed. Warren would find her nursing him in the rocking chair at 3 in the morning, talking softly about her day, and he would fall in love with her all over again. They managed the chaos of new parenthood together, taking turns, supporting each other through the exhaustion and the overwhelming love. Warren cut back even more at work, making sure he was home for dinner, for bath time, for the important moments. William grew from a tiny infant into a chubby, happy baby. He had Aria's dark hair and Warren's eyes, and he smiled constantly. Warren's parents were thrilled grandparents, visiting often and spoiling their grandson. Aria's family was the same, and William was never short of people who loved him. When William was 6 months old, Aria approached Warren with an idea. "I want to write that book," she said. "The one about physical therapy techniques. I've been thinking about it for years, and I think it's time." "Do it," Warren said immediately. "I'll support you however you need." So Aria started writing, stealing hours here and there when William napped or Warren took over. It took her 2 years, but she finished it. A publisher bought it, and suddenly, Aria was not just a physical therapist but an author. The book did well, became a resource for other therapists, and Aria glowed with accomplishment. "I'm so proud of you," Warren told her at the book launch party they threw. "You're incredible, you know that. I learned from the best," Aria said. "You showed me what it means to build something to work for what you want." "We're a good team," Warren said. "The best team," Aria agreed. Time passed in the beautiful, chaotic way it does with young children. William started walking, then talking, then running everywhere. He was curious and energetic, keeping them both on their toes. Warren taught him to play piano, simple songs at first, delighting when William's small fingers found the right keys. When William was 3, Aria got pregnant again. This time they had a girl, a tiny thing with Aria's features and a calm temperament that was the opposite of her brother's energy. They named her Lily, and Warren felt his heart somehow expand even more. Life was full and rich and sometimes overwhelming. Warren had stepped back almost entirely from the company now, serving on the board but letting Patricia run day-to-day operations. He had discovered that being present for his family was infinitely more satisfying than any business deal. He and Aria still made time for each other. Date nights where they remembered they were not just parents but partners, lovers, best friends. They would talk about everything and nothing, laugh about the chaos of their lives, plan for the future. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Warren took Aria back to the botanical gardens where he had proposed. They walked through the same paths, older now but no less in love. "You remember when I proposed here?" Warren asked. "Of course I remember," Aria said. "I was completely shocked. I thought we were just looking at flowers. I was so nervous, I thought I might drop the ring. You were perfect, Aria said. She stopped walking and turned to face him. These 5 years have been the best of my life. Even with the chaos and the exhaustion and the mess, I wouldn't change a single thing. Me neither, Warren said. Well, maybe I would change not telling you how I felt in high school. Think of all the extra time we could have had together. We have the rest of our lives, Aria pointed out. That's more than enough. Warren pulled her close. I love you, just as much as I did when we were 17, as much as when I proposed, as much as on our wedding day. More even. Every day I love you more. I love you too, Aria said. Thank you for dancing with me at that reunion. Thank you for being brave. Thank you for feeling the same way, Warren said. For giving us this chance. They kissed there among the flowers, and Warren thought about the journey that had brought them here. 20 years of wondering and waiting, and then a second chance that had turned into everything he had ever wanted. A wife he adored, children who filled his days with joy, a life that felt full and meaningful. Later that night, after they had put the kids to bed and were sitting on their back patio with wine, Aria leaned against Warren's shoulder. What do you think our 17-year-old selves would say if they could see us now? She asked. Warren considered this. I think my 17-year-old self would be shocked that I actually got the girl, and that I'm happy doing something other than work. My 17-year-old self would be relieved that I finally told you how I felt, Aria said, even if it took 20 years to get there. It all worked out in the end, Warren said. He kissed the top of her head. We found our way to each other. We did, Aria agreed, and I can't wait to see where we go from here. Warren tightened his arm around her, looking out at their yard where toys lay scattered on the grass, evidence of their children's play. Inside, their house held the life they had built together, the family they had created. It was everything he had never known he wanted, everything he had been missing when he was focused solely on success. The company still existed, still thrived under Patricia's leadership, but it was no longer Warren's entire identity. He was a husband now, a father, a man who had learned that true wealth was measured not in dollars but in moments like this. Quiet evenings with the woman he loved, morning chaos with his children, the accumulation of small joys that made up a life well lived. And it had all started with a high school reunion, a moment of courage on a dance floor, and a second chance with the one who had always held his heart. Warren had spent 20 years building a business empire, proving himself to the world. But the greatest thing he had ever built was this life with Aria, this family, this love that had waited patiently for its time. As stars emerged overhead and Aria's breathing deepened against his shoulder, Warren made a silent promise. He would never take this for granted, never let work pull him away from what mattered most. He had been given a second chance at love, and he intended to cherish every moment of it. Years from now, when William and Lily were grown with families of their own, Warren knew he would look back on these days as the best of his life. Not the days when his company went public, not the days when he closed major deals or made the Forbes list. But these days, filled with chaos and laughter and love with a woman who had been worth the 20-year wait. I'm grateful, Warren said softly, not sure if Aria was awake to hear him. For all of it. For you, for our kids, for this life we built together. Me too, Aria murmured, proving she was still awake. Every single day, I'm grateful we found our way back to each other. They sat there under the stars, wrapped in each other and in the life they had created, knowing that the best was yet to come. Because with Aria by his side, every day was the best day. Every moment was a gift. And Warren Pierce, who had once thought success was measured in quarterly earnings and market share, had finally learned what it truly meant to be rich.